Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's January 11th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this will wrap up our week. No chart lessons on um, Friday, so this will be it for the week. Believe it or not, we've already put in a second week during January, so we're moving right along here in the new year. This market just keeps going up. It was a little bit confusing till we took off again here, and then once we took off again, there was no doubt we were going higher. You couldn't find this channel really until, well, I drew it off these highs here originally. I ended up adjusting a little more. I originally had it right there. It still fits right there. Um, but I drew it off those highs right there, and then I dropped it down. And you had the bounce here, but really you probably wanted to draw your first two swings here. And then you probably drag it up and you see that it fits and it comes into play perfectly later. But a lot of times you'll find these off the highs first because we made this high before we made this low. And so when we bounced here, then it doesn't surprise you so much if you did this. But it's a little hard because a lot of times it's the closes, and if you use the closes here, it still fits and you still get the same thing. You just had to make a little more adjustment up here. And you really, maybe this is an overshoot. The market was just so strong, but generally when you get a strong overshoot, that's not really a strong overshoot if you look at it like that. Um, so, but that's how I found it originally. Um, and you drop it down, and then you're just looking for it to bounce somewhere. And again, you don't know if it's off the closes, but when it keeps going, you just drop it down, and then you can see it fits perfectly there on that close. So this is just comes from experience. The more you do it, the more experienced you'll get at it. And but early on, we had this brown channel, um, which again, I found it off the top. I drew it off the closes here, drug it down, and you can see it's fitting up through there pretty nicely. And then you get a break, and it looked like we'd had a break and a double top, and we're going to sell off here, um, but it never happened. So um, anyway, I wanted to show them both. We'll talk about the brown one first because that's what I was playing early on, and then we'll move that out of the way just so it's not so confusing looking, and we'll go the other way. But early on, I was looking at this brown channel, and notice we're moving up, and we got a little trend coming down. This was right around the 7 o'clock hour, and you get a first entry long, and then you pull back and you get a second entry right there, and that's close enough. You may want to take that, but that's a doji on my chart. If you had a little more bullish bar, you might want to take that, but I didn't like that one. And then you get the another attempt to go lower and a little more bullish bar. That one's just for within the ticket closing on its high. I like going long right there. And if you went long right here, you might have got stopped out first. You might have got fooled. Um, I definitely wouldn't have gone short there, even though there's a failed second entry long. I wouldn't have gone short there because of this possible trend line working up here. And and if nothing else, you might have another way to look at it. You might have originally drawn your trend line like that, and that's the first close outside, so you'd be looking for a possible long as well. So you could have looked at that a couple of different ways. There's a shorter term one in there. Only problem with that other one is it doesn't fit very well on the other side. So to make it fit properly, it needs to look more like this brown one. And then of course you got a new low there, and then your first entry, second entry. There's a failed second entry short. I like going long right there off the trend line, the EMA. It's a higher low versus these last couple of lows here. It does tick one tick lower than that one. Um, and you could still look at that as like a little two-legged pullback to the EMA. So I like that one. Somebody sent me a message and they were worried about the signal bar, but when it's a trap like that, don't worry about it. And the thing here is you got this little failed break lower too, so that gives that, a lot of times that turns out to be a major low, and in this case, it was just a temporary one, but when it comes back again, so it did turn out to be a major low for the day, but most of the time it doesn't come back again. This time it did come back and give you another chance. So, uh, but I like those two entries. And again, if you entered there, I don't, you could have had a little better signal bar, but that fact that there's a doji and we don't have a new low in place, I don't think you want to be going long, even though it's right there at that trend line. Um, I'd still probably sit tight and see if you don't get one more push down, and then maybe look for an entry. And it does. It takes off here. The failed second entry short takes off, and then at this point, uh, this closes right there at that line, but that's too close to. Let me make that a little bigger. It's kind of hard to see there. That's too close to the brown line to say, hey, definitively that's not a convincing close outside the trend line, which is what you need. So you don't know that this thing is over. So this, for all intents and purposes, is really the first close outside. But notice what happens. You're working down. You got this little channel. You do get what looks like an overshoot here. So that'll probably lead to a break on the other side or a close outside, which we don't really end up closing outside, but then we move to a new low and bounce. And then that's where we find the blue line. But I really thought we were probably going to reverse here. This looks like a reversal type pattern. So I like this for a short. If nothing else, in case this is a range, we're going to come back and test the lows here. And that's exactly what happens. And I like the bounce here. This bar I'd like it to be a little more bullish than that, but notice how many times we made that low. We tested it once, twice, three times, and really you could count this on the bigger picture as the first test, and this is a second test. And so that's the double test rule. I like this to the long side just because we're testing those lows again. And we do have a double overshoot here too, so that a lot of times that's going to lead to a big move, and of course it does. It just takes off. You got a little short-term trend line working up there. You get a close outside, move to a new high. You get a higher low here, but that's too bullish, so wait and see what else happens. And you do get a failed second entry long here, but this thing is starting to like an uptrend, and I don't think I'm going to be going short, and especially not into a double bottom. Notice that low and this low, there's a double bottom there. And you don't have, I mean, you got to go long right at those. Oh, can't I get that to stick up there? You got to go long right into that support right there in what looks like an uptrend. And the second thing is, there's your first leg. And so you're looking for a measured move, and you can see we actually overshot that and then kept going higher even after that. So that's your minimum target, is right in this area right here. So and notice too that if this blue channel is in play, let's just go ahead and get the brown one out of the way now. If the blue channel is in play, that we just came off the high, we came down to the low, and so we should be heading to the high. So this is like a little trap here. That's another reason to be careful going short right there. If you did go short here, you just should have reversed when you went on, when it went higher. But the fact that we weren't up, that we hadn't got back to the high, that's where prices were likely going when they left this point right here, if this channel is correct, which it looks pretty correct at that point, and the midline looks really nice as well. So you can see prices kind of playing both sides of it up through here. So I like that to the long side and staying away from the shorts. And off it goes. And it just keeps going. Of course, where does it find resistance? Up here at the highs of the channel. You start going sideways and you get a failed second entry short here, and this is an uptrend, but you're coming off that high side, so where a price is probably going, at least back to the midline, probably back to this line. So you got to be careful. And notice it comes back down here and it finds support. You get a little failed break lower. First entry right there when it breaks higher. I don't like going long here because that's a doji, and then you get another doji beside it, and then so that's 3 bars in a row that can't break above. There's a good chance we're going to try to make a new low off this trend line, or we might even come back to or off this midline. I'm sorry. we need a close outside, which we got there, and there's a good chance we may break down and make that retest of the low is what I'm trying to say. Or we could be headed back to the main trend line. Hopefully that's clear. Didn't come out right the first time when I said it. So now you got a second entry long. Um, you've tried to go lower a couple times, right at the midline. This is an uptrend. I like going long there again. It is a little bit sideways. You could almost argue for that to be green, but the fact that we went lower twice and failed, if it breaks higher here, we're probably going higher. And of course, it does take off. You get a failed second entry short here, and then you try to go lower again, and it bounces again. This, of course, this is after 2 o'clock, so I didn't mark it, but I wouldn't have been afraid to. I probably would mark that one green, but when it comes back here again, I'd definitely make that one blue. So nice trend day today. It was a little unclear right in here where we may be going, so you just had to be really careful. If you weren't sure right in here, just don't do anything. But if you found the blue channel, which is probably a little bit advanced for a lot of people, but if you've been doing this a while, I've shown you how you find these channels using the swings off the highs or the lows. And so if you did find the channel, the key was not only did we have a double test rule here, we should be going to the upper side. And this is just a short trap that fooled everybody. The market was still a little unsure, and then off it goes. And again, look for that measured move, which that's exactly, I mean, we got a couple of ticks more than that, and then we just kind of went sideways a little bit before late in the afternoon. We closed, basically the market closed within 2 ticks of its high there. So another strong day. I mean, we're more than halfway to 2,800 now. And it was just it seemed like just a month or so ago we were talking about 2,600. So this market's almost 200 points higher now, 160, 170 points higher. So it just doesn't quit. And so be careful shorting this market without something pretty clear cut. Really looking back at it, this one probably should be green because it really didn't, even though that's like 2 legs down and a failed second entry long, that's really only a first entry long. And so that's a little bit risky going short there. Although at this point, it's starting to look like we may have a range day. Market hadn't really gotten strong yet. It really gave a little hint here, and it didn't really get strong until this move up here. When we tested this the third time right here, that was your clue, especially if you could find that trend line. It was pretty obvious then. So, but anyway, another great day. Just a little bit of period. You had to be a little patient this morning too. There wasn't a really good entry till about 8:30. But guess what? If you caught this one trade, you could have ridden this thing all the way up. If you caught this trade, you could have ridden this thing all the way up. If you caught this trade, you could have ridden this thing all the way up. If you caught this one, you could have ridden it all the way into the close. So, it's easy. I mean, when you have trends like this is where you want to try to grab that runner, especially on these little retests of the low and failed break lower that are counter trend. Those turn out to be major turning points usually, and you get some good opportunity on them. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up for the week. We'll be back again Monday, but I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.